I'm Pastor Monica Jefferson, and welcome to Just a Thought, where I am a bold believer with bold faith, bold things to say and bold things to do. And I want to share them with each and every one of you. I'm beginning a brand new podcast series titled Transformed. The first episode of my Transformed series is titled Renewed Thinking, Renewed Life. All of my podcasts are based upon John 15:5, where Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. For this podcast series, I am using Romans 12:2, where we are reminded in the biblical text, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And so we begin. Today, we talk about renewed thinking, renewed life. You see, renewed thinking and the idea that I have behind renewed thinking has everything to do with the fact that everything that we do begins right here with our thinking in our mind. Before we behave or before we express, everything begins with the thought process. And this particular series is going to be talking about how all the influences around us, all the things that are happening in our community, in our families, in the world, affect us. How do we deal with that kind and those kinds of influences that are all around us? Well, the text that I'm using today tells us that we are not to be conformed to those negative, to those kinds of pressures that are all around us. How do we do that? How do we do that? Well, we begin with first understanding why our thinking or why our mind matters. Our mind matters. It matters how we think and how we approach everything that we do. Transformation begins with our thinking. It affects our decision making. It affects our belief, our faith, our reactions. We can trace it all back to our thinking. So I'm going to begin with some questions. I call this a kind of audit. What thoughts do you think day after day? Are there some thoughts that continually roll around in your mind and that you're thinking about constantly? Is it a worry? What thoughts do you begin your day with? And then the next question is, what beliefs or what have you accepted as a truth about your identity, about who you are? Our minds are like soil. If you are, we're in the midst of spring. If you are planting flowers, or you are a person that has plants, our mind is like soil. And what you put in that soil determines what grows from the soil, how the soil is treated. It all determines the fruit or the plant that will come forward. And if we're not intentional about what we plant in our minds, what we accept in our thinking, we will go about living each and every day in fear and insecurity. We will base our lives on negativity and we'll be anxious. And so, how do we deal with all of that that I've just talked about? Well, let's take a self-audit. What, once again, are your repeated thoughts that you repeat them so often that you feel stuck, you feel hopeless, you feel like I just can't move forward. There's too much going on in the world that is bigger than I am. How can little me change what is going on around me? Well, I'm here to tell you that there is one individual that you can influence and you can change. You can change yourself. You can begin to do exercises and practice some different kinds of thinking. Second, what labels have you accepted about yourself, about your life, about the way that you're living? And are you pleased with those labels? And then finally, I believe this is the most important part of the self-audit. Are your thoughts in sync with God's word? Or do they contradict God's word? Where are you stuck? What have you accepted about yourself? And does what you're thinking and what you've accepted line up with God's word? And so I encourage you to pause and just think about those 3 questions that I have submitted for a kind of self-audit. And so we're going to begin with some practice for mental renewal, for some mental exercises to help us, once we have discovered with our self-audit what we are to do. Now, these are not new ideas. These are just ideas that I have learned to exercise when I find myself in a difficult situation, or when I find myself not paying enough attention to my faith and my spiritual life. I take a self-audit. So we've taken the self-audit, and what have you discovered in your self-audit? Have you discovered that in your self-audit, your thinking is more fear-based, or is it faith-based? Are you taking enough time to really think about what you think about? And is your thinking, are you thinking thoughts that lift you up or weigh you down after you've taken that self-audit? And then now we're going to practice renewal. We're going to practice how we begin to identify why you think the way that you do. Were you constantly compared to other people? I know I was the 7th child in a large family, the youngest girl sibling in the family, and I was constantly being compared to my other siblings. Are you being compared to individuals? Are you somehow being told that you cannot live up to others' expectations? Or are you the one that are you are the one that are pressuring other people to live up to your expectations? Wherever you are in the self-audit, you need to identify and begin to practice either giving yourself a break, giving yourself some hope, or you need to practice not being so judgmental and expecting others to live up to what you or who you believe they should be. It's time to interrupt those kinds of practices and begin to renew your mind. Renew your thinking, renew your mind, renew your life. Again, the self-audit, what you've identified, and then begin some different self-talk. Some different self-talk. If you are constantly thinking, I always mess up, or that'll never work, look at a verse like our verse today. Do not be conformed to this world, from Romans 12:2, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Or Philippians 4:13, I can do all things I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Or maybe you have your own special verse that is positive, that will lift you up instead of weigh you down. Practice saying that about yourself and insert yourself into those verses. Start at the beginning of the day and the end of the day and use those verses to say, if you use Romans 12:2. Others may say I mess up, or I can't change, or I'm not good enough, or that I am better than others. And either one of those, any one of those, we can use today's text and say, I am not conformed to this world of hurting others, judging others in an uncomplimentary way. I am not a person that is conformed to this world. I do not mess up all the time. And you can begin to renew your mind. And once you identify that kind of influence in your life, you can begin to take steps to make changes. Renew your thinking, renew your life. That's our first episode of this transformed series. And so you have some practice to do, you have some reflection to do, you have an audit to do. You can reach me, contact me through my website, PastorMonicaJ.org, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com at Pastor Monica Jefferson. You can also email me at PastorMonicaJ@gmail.com. Until next time, I thank you for journeying with me. God bless, and I love you.